Hey everybody, welcome back to another reasonable price prediction, the series where we try to figure out where your favorite altcoin could be headed. Now today we're looking at Crust as requested down in the comments below. And for those of you that don't know, because I didn't, Crust is basically a data hosting service. So it's decentralized storage basically. So think of Filecoin, think of Arweave. Crust is a competitor. Now it's got a much lower market cap. It's definitely not in the upper echelon or established area that Filecoin and Arweave would be in, but it's definitely a competitor, and there is good chance that it does perform well. Again, an altcoin doesn't have to have a high market cap to perform well, and in fact, it's often the contrary, where the best performers or the altcoins that perform best during that cycle is when they have the lowest market cap, because naturally it's much easier to move the price up when there's less liquidity. So getting straight into it, not too much to look at the Crust US dollar pair. And again, I don't like to repeat myself much across videos, so I will keep it short in terms of the macro. Again, we can just see here that we had our bull run. We put in great percentage moves. We can see Crust did a 55x, basically a 56x from this range here that we'll come back to later to its all-time high. So again, lots of money. Its all-time high being at 180 US dollars. Crust is currently trading at about $1.80, so it's basically 100x away from its all-time high. And over the last year, we've basically seen Crust play out a cup and saucer pattern. So we had this sort of pump at the beginning of 2023 that all the altcoins got. Crust retraced down to these lows and put in even newer lows, which wasn't uncommon. A lot of other altcoins did this. Then we had a rally up, forming our cup, and then we had a retracement back and put in our handle. Excuse me, I did say cup and saucer. I meant to say handle. And again, we're seeing this over a lot of cryptocurrencies in the space. And what usually happens with a cup and handle pattern is there is usually a breakout to the upside. And another thing that you might want to use to corroborate this theory is, again, a few months after the halving. This is about a 4-month range, I'm pretty sure. This is late September here. And this halving took place early May, mid-May. So give or take 4 months. If we go 4 months back from the halving, not that it's really important, but we can see that Rust has rallied up strongly and has continued to. And if we expect that Crust will continue to rally up after the halving for the next 4 months after the halving, it could very easily come back up to this $3.40 level. Again, if we draw sort of a way marker, how much of a percentage move that would be from where we currently are, it's about a 70% move, which isn't too incomprehensible considering, over the last few weeks, Crust has made basically the same move. Now, do I think we will just go up there? No, I think we probably will have some turbulence in the meantime. I do think we could wick up to this price and put it as a resistance, and maybe we'll put in this high as we cross the halving, and then potentially pull back, and then after our 4 months have gone, we might revisit that level and break above, or we might, break above and use it as a support like happened here. But again, that's assuming that Crust is going to be popular, there's going to be demand, and it's going to perform in a similar way it did its first cycle. And of course now it's a totally different market, it's a totally different environment, and also it's a different coin. There's a lot more things that have happened with Crust over these 3.5, 4 years compared to when it first launched. The market cap is obviously much bigger than where it was here, but that doesn't mean that it still can't perform extremely well. So realistically, in the short term, you're hoping that sometime after the halving, we come to this level of $3 and use it as a support. And then if so, you can maybe expect similar moves to the upside during the bull run. But again, past performance is no guarantee of future returns. And Crust could very easily not take off. Now, it does classify as sort of a deep in crypto. I know there's a lot of buzz around that at the moment. We've been seeing Filecoin take off. We've been seeing a lot of these deep in coins take off along with the AI coins. So if that's a sector of crypto that you think might do well, it might be worth picking some of Crust up, a bit of Crust up. Now, it's a bit hard to get your hands on. It's not on many centralized exchanges, but it is on Uniswap. So if you're comfortable trading on that and other sort of DeFi platforms, you can easily get some. Just to also go into this $3 support that we were talking about, when we did move into this zone, it did come from a very strong buy up. Now, of course, this was when Crust listed. And when altcoins list, they usually do have some extreme price performance, whether that's a huge sell-off or a huge buy up. And because Crust launched basically into the start of the bull run, it was most likely going to see a big buy up, and that's what it got. However, what we do often see as well, during around this time, we saw it around this time last cycle, a few months after the halving, a lot of altcoins exploded, especially on their Bitcoin pair. They really took a lot of value from Bitcoin, and then over the next few months, they took it back. Now, this could be a bit of a sign of those times when Crust launched at the right time, altcoins were exploding, Crust explodes. During this time, we get a top, and then we get our pullback as Bitcoin takes back some of its value that allows us to have this alt season during 2021. That could have been what played out here, but again, it's very difficult to say as the coin launched. This could just be price correction as we had 3 weeks of green lines basically to extreme levels, but it did settle or top out at this 850 range, and then we had this pullback. If you want to expect a similar thing during this bull cycle, it could be that when the halving takes place, these altcoins a few months later do have their explosive move like we've seen before, and then the explosive pullback that we have often seen that comes with that first move, especially on the Bitcoin pair. And on the US dollar pair, it looks something like this, where we have big green candles from altcoins and then a pullback on the US dollar pair. But on the Bitcoin pair, it's literally like an upside down V. Basically, it starts at a low, blows up, comes back down. And sadly, we don't have a Bitcoin pair for Crust, but we do have an Ethereum one, which we will take a look at. And I think this will probably influence a bit of your buying decision, maybe. Again, we see around similar time. I mean, it's kind of, we don't have as much data here. We only have from 2021, basically, so we don't get this explosive move. This kind of is it, actually. But again, you see it's kind of more of a launch price type of action than any actual macro move. So I'm going to try my best to ignore it. We can see that basically Crust, the whole time during its existence, has bled against Ethereum. And we can see it topped out against Ethereum at 0.08 Ethereum, which is quite good for an altcoin. And then basically for the rest of its existence, it's dropped down and down and down. Now, we recently put in our all-time low of 0.00025, 3025 Ethereum, which isn't great, but again, it's also a good sign in a way that says you can still buy this coin for cheap. And I think its US dollar chart reflects that in comparison to previous price anyway. Could go much lower. But if you're hopeful for Crust, and if you think it will do decently, which in all honesty, I think it probably will, you have to kind of gauge how well do you think Crust can do. If you think that Crust has any way of returning to these highs that it put in on its Ethereum pair back in mid-2021, you've got to do some calculations. And what that basically means is here, Crust dropped, or it needs to rally up from its low 150x. So let's say from current price, you're hoping from current price, which is about a 100x on Ethereum. We'll even be conservative, it's 107, or round down, nice easy numbers. So it's going to 100x against Ethereum. If you think Ethereum itself is going to do, say, a 4x during this cycle, you now have to multiply your outperforming of Ethereum by 4, which is 4, against your expectations of what Crust will do this cycle. And I might not have explained that well, but if you think Ethereum is going to 4x and Crust is going to outperform Ethereum by 100x, that means Crust is going to make a 400% move against its US dollar pair. Now, I think this is ludicrous because a 100x from where we currently are puts us at $200. If you think Crust can reach $800 US, then fair play. You could be a prophet. Who knows? You might know something that the rest of us aren't seeing. And if that risk pays off, power to you. But for me, that's not the type of risk taking I'm comfortable with. So you have to think, okay, how much is Crust going to outperform Ethereum if it's going to? And you go, well, is 12x reasonable? Well, if Ethereum's going to 4x this cycle, which I think is quite conservative, to be honest with you, I can definitely see a 12,000 Ethereum at the peak of the bull run, even higher potentially. But again, we'll be conservative. A 12x here against Ethereum. And Ethereum does a 4x, that puts us about a 50x. From current prices, you're looking at about a $100 Crust, give or take. Somewhere around the 80 range, 85. Do you think that's reasonable? It could definitely happen. Crust has been there before. And in fact, where we consolidated after our first pullback during the sort of, well, it was still the bull run, but I mean, technically from here it was all downwards. So our final local high really for Crust was $70, give or take. So it could definitely reach that visit again. So maybe a 12x outperforming against Ethereum is reasonable. If you're more conservative and you might hope for a 4x outperformance of Ethereum, Crust is beating Ethereum by 4x in terms of what it does on its US dollar pair, which means Crust is going up here 400%. And if you think Ethereum is doing 400% move on its US dollar pair, you're expecting a 16x, which from current prices is putting you somewhere around the $30, 35 under 40 range for Crust. And again, it's definitely a level that Crust has been at, and where it's seen significant, or will see potentially significant resistance at. We can see it spent a lot of time and tried its best to stay above this 30 level, this sort of 27, 28 level during the bull run, and just couldn't handle it and fell into a bottomless pit once it broke below there. You know, there was no mercy really for how badly Crust fell. So again, a very strong, not only psychological, but also just in terms of historical resistance level that we will most likely see around the $30 level, even the $28 level. But again, I don't think that's unreasonable, and a 16x is probably within your grasp. Again, it's good to see that a lot of these cryptocurrencies are moving in the same way that a lot of the other big players are. I think it shows that they are mirroring what the rest of the crypto space is doing, and that means that people are trading them. People are using them. They've not just been forgotten about, and they've just been trailing out here. Now, if you want to turn the logarithmic chart off, that's literally what it looks like, which is quite scary. And like, you have to really zoom in to see what we're dealing with here. So again, just a reminder, I am dealing with logarithmic, and if this chart scares you, it kind of should. But again, risk equal reward. You know, there's a big risk here that nothing happens with Crust. But are you willing to take that risk? That is completely up to you. That's what I'm saying. And that's something that you have to decide yourself. I think that about wraps up this video. I can't really think of too much more to say. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Comment down below which coins you want next, or if you think I got something wrong with Crust, and consider checking out FairDesk with the link in the description. FairDesk is an exchange, and they'll give you a deposit bonus, and they have low trading fees. So definitely worth having an extra exchange set up, so when the bull run comes along, and maybe KuCoin goes down, or Binance goes down for a few hours, and you really want to trade your coins, you can send them over to your second exchange. And that could be FairDesk. And better off to set it up now and deal with the KYC now instead of waiting to the peak of the bull run. But they do also have sort of limited trading with no KYC. So that's up to you as well. But anyway, thanks very much for watching, guys. Take care and peace.